what's in this jar is sheer luxury. Why? Because the unique concentrated citrus flavour of marmalade, made with these very special oranges from Seville in Spain, can only be achieved when you make it at home. All you need to do now is learn how to make it. First, the equipment. This is a special preserving pan, which is a good investment if you want to move on and learn how to make jams and chutneys. But a large 6.5 litre pan like this one is fine. You'll also need some gauze from the chemist or muslin cut into a 30 centimetre square, some string and a kitchen timer. Here I've got 6 450 gram preserving jars with lids, some waxed paper discs, and this, which is a special funnel to help you fill the jars. Lastly, sticky labels. First of all, in the pan you're using, smear the base with a little butter to prevent it catching later on. Add 2.5 litres of cold water. We're using 1 kilo of Seville oranges and a large lemon because lemon juice contains lots of pectin, which I'll explain later. When you're buying Seville oranges, the rougher the skins the better, and we find the large ones are always less of a fiddle. First, nip out the stalk ends, then cut the oranges into halves. Then squeeze out the juice, either with one of these, or if you want to make real light work of it, invest in a citrus squeezer, because once you've tasted homemade marmalade, you'll want to make it all the time. As you squeeze the fruit, all the debris and pips are gathered in the collection tray. This is then scraped into the muslin, which is resting in a bowl. All this is very important because it contains a substance called pectin, and this is what's going to set the marmalade. Now halve the cut oranges into quarters, then squeeze each quarter together with your hands and slice it into shreds. I've always found it easier to do this with a small serrated kitchen knife like this. Some people like fine shredded marmalade, so it can be like this. Or others, like me, like it very chunky, in which case you slice it like this. The best way to do this is sit down comfortably and just chomp away till it's all done. The juice of the lemon is going to help us get a good set. The lemon peel can be included or not. I prefer just to use the orange peel. Now add all the squeezed juice to the pan, followed by the shredded peel. Then you tie up the muslin, making a little bag like this, and tie it to the handle of the pan, so it can release all that precious pectin. Next, bring everything up to simmering point. And now you're going to simmer it very gently for about 2 hours. It doesn't need any stirring or any attention, so you can get on with something else. This has now had 2 hours simmering, and as you can see from the tide mark, the water has reduced right down. To test if it's ready, take a piece of peel, and as soon as it's cool enough, squeeze it between your thumb and forefinger. If you can squeeze it in half, it's ready. If not, give it a bit longer. Untie the muslin bag from the handle and put it on a plate to cool and reserve it for later. So now we're going to add the sugar. We've got 2 kilos of preserving sugar. You can, if you like, use just granulated, but because the crystals are large, it helps to know when they're dissolved. If you're thinking that's rather a lot of sugar, it's what preserves the marmalade, and that's why it's so much better made with bitter oranges than sweet. Our next task is to keep the heat really low and allow all the sugar to dissolve, stirring it now and then. The way to tell is to dig in with your wooden spoon, lift it up, and if you see any more granules left like this, then you need to give it a bit longer. You'll be able to see quite clearly when it's all dissolved. And this is important because if you don't dissolve the sugar, the finished marmalade becomes sugary. Now we're ready to set the marmalade, so turn the heat now to its very highest setting. And what's going to happen now is what the old-fashioned cooks call a rolling boil, which means it needs to bubble and boil as fiercely as possible. While you're waiting for it to come to the boil, take the bag of pips and squeeze it as hard as you can with your hands. You'll see then all the precious gelling agent oozing out onto the plate. When you have as much as you possibly can squeeze, add it to the pan and then use a balloon whisk just to whisk it into the rest. Now put 3 small plates into the freezing compartment of your fridge or just the fridge itself, because when you test the marmalade, the plates need to be really cold. As soon as you get a fast boil, put a timer on and give it 15 minutes, with an occasional stir now and then to stop it catching. Then remove the pan from the heat and do your first test. Take a chilled plate and place 1 teaspoon of marmalade onto it. Then put it back in the fridge until the marmalade is cool, about 3 minutes. After that, push the mixture with your little finger, and if it's set, you get a crinkly skin and no loose liquid underneath. If it isn't, put it back on the heat, reboil it for another 5 minutes and repeat the test. This one isn't ready, there's still some liquid. This one is nearly ready, and this one here is absolutely as it should be. Once it's set, if there's any scum on the marmalade, just add a little nub of butter and stir it in. You can spoon off any remaining scum. Then leave the marmalade to just settle for 20 minutes before you pour it into the jars. The marmalade is poured into warm sterilised jars which have been washed in mild soapy water, rinsed, dried and placed in a medium oven for 5 minutes. Fill the marmalade right up to the neck of the jar. Place the waxed paper discs wax side down on the hot marmalade, making sure it goes right up to the side of the jar. This is what will seal the marmalade. Then put the lids on whilst they're still hot, but don't label them until they're cold. Store in a dry, cool, dark place. The Spanish who grow the oranges and the British who devised the recipe have between them, without doubt, created one of the best preserves in the world.